I never thought I'd end up mopping someone else's kitchen floor, especially not one I paid for. But there I was, crouched down on my knees with a bucket of pine sol and a sponge, wiping splatters off the tile while my daughter-in-law sat 2 rooms away with her AirPods in, talking about digital strategy and something called click-through rates. She had no idea. Not a clue that the woman scrubbing her baseboards was the one who paid the property taxes. That the modest 3-bedroom she kept calling their starter home was bought with my retirement account. That the woman she handed a printed list of chores to every morning was the same woman who'd walked through that front door with the keys 12 years ago, alone. Let me start from the top. I'm Evelyn Maynard. I'm 67, a widow, retired school librarian, and apparently a full-time unpaid housekeeper in a house I bought. When my husband died 8 years ago, I downsized from our family home and purchased a smaller property outright in a quieter suburb. Not fancy, but safe, clean, and close to my son. My plan was to rent it out for passive income, and for a while I did, until the pandemic hit. My son Jeremy and his wife Amanda had just had a baby, my first grandchild. Times were tight. Amanda had lost her marketing job, and Jeremy's hours were cut at the dealership. They were struggling in their 1-bedroom apartment, eating off TV trays, with a pack-and-play jammed up against the window unit. I didn't hesitate. Move into the house on Lenox, I told Jeremy over the phone. It's paid off, no mortgage, just cover the utilities and keep it clean. He tried to say no. He always was a proud boy. But they moved in that same month. I even helped them load the U-Haul myself, lugging boxes labeled wedding gifts and baby bottles, like I didn't have a hip that liked to scream on cold mornings. At the time, I told them to treat it like home, and that was my mistake. Because Amanda took that literally. At first, things were fine. We all kept to our corners. I stayed in my smaller condo on the east side and came by once or twice a week to babysit or bring over groceries. Amanda was polite, if clipped, always had that glued-on smile that never quite reached her eyes. Jeremy would say things like, "She's just stressed, Mom. New job, new baby. She appreciates everything." I swear. I wanted to believe that. But somewhere in the second year, things shifted. Amanda stopped texting me thank you notes when I dropped off diapers. She started leaving little messes behind, dishes in the sink, laundry half folded. One day I came by and the baby's bottle was sticky with old formula. I said something gentle. She brushed it off with, "Oh, must have missed it. You know how it is working full-time and being a mom." Sure, I thought. Except I had worked full-time and raised 2 kids. I knew exactly how it was, but I let it go. Then came the visits. She stopped calling them that. She started referring to them as my help days, like I was her nanny or part-time maid. "Could you run the Roomba while you're here? Jeremy said you were great with the bottle sterilizer. Oh, and the baseboards are a nightmare, if you wouldn't mind." I bit my tongue. Every time. Then one Tuesday morning, I showed up to bring banana muffins and found a list taped to the fridge. A bulleted list with checkboxes. At the top, in bubbly font, "To-dos while I work. Thanks so much, Evelyn." I kid you not, it read like this: dishes, mop kitchen, vacuum bedrooms, tidy up living room, pick up groceries, almond milk, oat creamer, blueberries, chicken thighs, scrub guest bathroom. It's starting to smell. There was even a side note. If there's time, can you organize the pantry? It's a mess. And at the bottom, circled in pink highlighter, "You're a lifesaver." I stood there, muffin tin still warm in my hands, and I laughed. I actually laughed, because it was so absurd it felt like a bad sitcom. Except I wasn't an actress. I was a 67-year-old woman being treated like the help in a house she owned. She didn't know. That was the best part. She didn't realize the house was still under my name. See, when they moved in, Jeremy handled all the paperwork, set up the utilities, changed the mailing address, everything. But the deed? The title? Never transferred. They didn't buy it. They didn't rent it. They just moved in. And I let them. But Amanda assumed somewhere along the line that it had become theirs, that maybe I had signed it over, that I was just the sweet old lady who dropped by to mop her floors and fold her hand towels like I owed her something. That afternoon, I sat on the front porch swing and watched Amanda through the window. She was at her laptop, laughing on a video call, sipping an iced coffee I had probably bought her last week. She hadn't noticed that I hadn't checked a single item off her list. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called my real estate attorney. "Clara," I said, "I need the lease agreement template. We're going to formalize something, or we're going to end it." She chuckled. "You finally ready?" "More than ready," I said. I stood up, brushed the muffin crumbs from my slacks, and went inside to add a handwritten item at the bottom of Amanda's core list. Pack. When I wrote pack at the bottom of that list, I didn't slam it down. I didn't scrawl it in red or underline it twice with angry slashes. No, I wrote it neatly, in black ink, same style as hers. Tidy cursive, just like my mama taught me. Because there's something far more unsettling about quiet confidence than loud anger. I placed the chore list back on the fridge, right under the little heart-shaped magnet that said, "Bless this mess." Oh, the irony. Amanda never saw me do it. She was still in her work zone, as she called it, tucked behind her MacBook in the dining room, legs crossed under a cashmere blanket, typing frantically like the future of corporate America depended on her next Instagram caption, so I left without saying a word. That night, my son called. "Hey, Mom, Amanda said you left a weird note on her to-do list?" His voice was tight, uneasy. He knew something was off. I played it light at first. "Oh, just a suggestion. She had 6 things on there already. I figured 7 was a lucky number." He paused. "She said you wrote pack." "I did." Silence. "Why would you write that?" I exhaled, looked out the window of my condo at the moon rising behind the Walgreens. I could hear the clink of my old radiator kicking on. "Because," I said softly, "I'm giving you both 60 days. He let out a half laugh, the kind people give when they're scared to ask what they already know. 60 days. For what? To move out. Now let me back up a moment and tell you something about my son. Jeremy was always good-hearted. Always the peacekeeper. The boy who split his Halloween candy down the middle with his little sister, even when she was too young to know what a Reese's was. But somewhere along the way, between marrying Amanda and surviving the chaos of new parenthood, he started folding too easily. I saw it in how he rushed off the phone with me whenever Amanda walked into the room. I saw it in how he apologized for her behavior before she'd even done anything. How he tried to cushion her tone with words like, "She's just tired," or "She didn't mean it that way." But I knew better, and this time I wasn't going to let him patch over a hole that was swallowing both of them. He came over the next evening, alone. I had set out tea and slices of banana bread, just like I always used to do when he stopped by after college classes. I kept things warm and welcoming, because this wasn't revenge. This was correction. He sat across from me, elbows on the table like a boy again. "Are you serious?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "Dead serious." He looked down at his hands. "Mom, we don't have anywhere else to go. We can't afford rent right now, not with the baby's daycare, and you can," I said. "You just haven't had to, because I made things too easy." He looked hurt. That was hard, seeing that familiar boyish ache in his eyes. "I didn't know it upset you this much," he mumbled. "That's because you stopped looking." I told him everything. Not to scold, but to lay it out plainly, like I would with a student who was failing not because they weren't smart, but because they weren't paying attention. I told him how Amanda had slowly shifted from grateful to entitled, how she had started assigning me chores, how she'd started treating me like a fixture instead of a person. I didn't even bring up the lists at first, but then I pulled one out from my purse, one I'd kept. I handed it to him and pointed to the highlighted note. "You're a lifesaver." I watched him read it. His brows tightened. She made a list. Every week. He looked like he was about to say something, maybe defend her, maybe excuse it, but I held up a hand. "I didn't come here to argue. I came here to tell you, 60 days. He slumped back in his chair. "So that's it?" I nodded. "Unless you'd like to sign a formal lease, at market rate, with rules." "Market rate?" He blinked. "We couldn't swing that." "Then I suggest you start packing." You might think I was being cruel, but here's the thing about people like Amanda. They don't learn from comfort. They learn from consequences. And people like Jeremy? They don't grow unless you give them something solid to push against. I wasn't cutting them out. I was waking them up. The next morning, Amanda texted me. Wow, really classy move. Guess we know where your priorities are. No hi. No can we talk? No apology. Just blame. That's when I knew for sure I was making the right call. She still had no idea the house wasn't hers, and part of me wanted to tell her right then. But another part? Well, that part decided I'd wait. Let her start packing first. Then I'd hand her the deed. You know how people say they want to talk, but what they really mean is they want to talk at you? That's exactly what Amanda meant when she texted me. Can we have a proper adult conversation? In person, I agreed. Not because I thought she'd listen, but because some lessons are best served in person, with coffee, a calm voice, and paperwork. So that Thursday, I showed up at the house they'd been living in rent-free for nearly 3 years. I wore jeans, my favorite cardigan, and brought lemon pound cake. Call it my version of a peace offering with a side of accountability. Amanda opened the door like she was expecting a client. High ponytail, leggings, bare feet, and that same corporate smile that never made it to her eyes. We sat at the kitchen island, where I'd once taught Jeremy how to roll biscuit dough, and she didn't offer me tea, just launched right in. I just feel like this came out of nowhere, she started, placing her palms flat on the marble like she was hosting a TED Talk. Did it? I asked gently. She blinked. Yes, you've always helped us. We never asked for anything more than you were already offering. I tilted my head. Is that what chore lists are now? Help requests? Her cheeks colored slightly. That wasn't. I was just organizing, delegating. I thought it made things easier for you. I nodded slowly. Easier for me to mop your floor? She frowned. I work from home, Evelyn. I manage real clients, real projects. I don't have time to keep up with the house while juggling a career and a toddler. Neither did I said. But somehow I raised 2 kids, worked full-time, and still managed to scrub my own toilet. That quieted her for a second. Then she pulled out the ace she thought she had. But this isn't really your place to say anymore. It's our home now. And if you have issues with how we live, maybe it's better if we just go our separate ways. I swear to you, she said that with a little shrug, like she was offering me a graceful exit from my own house. So I reached into my bag and placed a file folder on the counter. Inside, a copy of the deed, property tax records, and the notarized title, all in my name. She stared at the papers, then looked at me, then back down. I thought this house was in Jeremy's name. I sipped my tea. Nope, it's in mine. Always has been. But he said, he never mentioned, he didn't know either until 2 nights ago. She went pale. Not just confused, but cornered, because all that time she thought she was managing me, giving me orders, treating me like the help. She had been living in a house she didn't own, under the roof of a woman she never respected. I see, she said after a long pause. She stood, crossed her arms. So what? This was all just a setup? You were waiting for me to mess up so you could swoop in and yank the rug out from under us? I stared at her, calm, steady. No, I said. This wasn't a trap, Amanda. It was a gift, one you never bothered to say thank you for. She flinched. It was the first time I saw something real in her face. Not annoyance, not irritation, but the flicker of shame. You always made me feel like I wasn't enough, she muttered. No, I said. You did that all by yourself. She tried to backpedal then, offered weak apologies, asked if we could just clear the air, said it had been a rough couple of years. I understand that, I told her, but kindness doesn't cost anything, and you spent it like it was beneath you. Then I gave her the envelope with the formal 60-day notice to vacate. Jeremy and I had agreed on it, reluctantly, yes, but he did agree. If you want to stay, I said, you're welcome to sign a lease. Full rent, no favors, no fridge notes, and definitely no chore lists. She didn't respond. She just stared at the paper like it was written in fire. I left her standing there in that very expensive kitchen, with her curated plants and her motivational magnets, and I walked out without a fuss. There was nothing more to say, because I hadn't raised a doormat, and I wasn't about to become one either. Later that night, Jeremy called me. She's shaken, he said. She should be. I think this needed to happen, he added. I didn't see it until now, but you were right. She got too comfortable with the taking. I didn't say, I told you so. I just said, I love you. That hasn't changed. And he said, I know. And I think I'm finally seeing it. If I've learned anything in 67 years, it's that some apologies are really just PR cleanups, carefully packaged, sweetened with a smile, and served with a hidden clause. Amanda showed up at my door 3 days after I handed her the 60-day notice. No text, no warning, just a knock on my condo door at 4:30 on a Saturday afternoon while I was in my slippers, trimming dead leaves off my snake plant and listening to Billie Holiday. I opened the door, and there she was. Hair down, makeup light, holding a paper bag that smelled like Thai takeout. "Hi, Evelyn," she said softly, as if we'd just had a mild disagreement over board game rules. "I brought Pad CU and those spring rolls you like." I blinked, not because I was flattered, but because I recognized the performance. Amanda was doing what Amanda always did, presenting polish instead of honesty. Still, I stepped aside and let her in. I'm not rude, just not stupid. We sat at the little table near my kitchen window. She unpacked the food, smoothed her napkin, and launched right into what I can only describe as the most well-rehearsed apology I've ever heard in my life. "I've been reflecting a lot," she began, "and I realize I've taken your generosity for granted. With the house. With everything." I nodded but didn't speak. I think I let stress get the best of me. Work, the baby, trying to be the wife Jeremy deserves. It's not an excuse, but I hope it explains some of my behavior. I chewed on a spring roll while she talked, mostly because I needed something in my mouth to stop me from jumping in too soon. And those chore lists, she added with a sheepish smile, were completely out of line. I cringe just thinking about it now. I raised an eyebrow. "So do I." She winced. "Fair." Then came the real reason she was there. "I was thinking," she said slowly, as if measuring each word like a calorie, "maybe we could revisit the lease option. But maybe at a reduced rate, just for a little while longer until we're more stable." There it was. The catch! The entire dinner, the apology, the humble expression, the delivery of egg rolls had led to this ask. I set down my fork, folded my napkin, and looked her dead in the eye. "Amanda," I said, "do you know how many people in this country are working 2 jobs just to afford a 1-bedroom apartment in a bad neighborhood?" She blinked. I guess a lot?" "A lot," I nodded. "And you and Jeremy have been living mortgage-free in a safe neighborhood, in a house you didn't buy for almost 3 years. She opened her mouth, but I kept going. "You got a private backyard, central AC, a finished basement, and all I asked in return was respect. Not even rent, just kindness." Her lips tightened. "I wasn't unkind. You gave me chores, Amanda, and not just once, repeatedly. You turned me into your unpaid help and then acted like I should be grateful for being included in your schedules." "I didn't mean—" "But you did do it," I interrupted gently. "And now you're here not because you feel terrible, but because you're scared. And that's not the same as remorse." The silence between us was thick. I didn't raise my voice, didn't shame her. I just let the truth hang there. She stared down at her untouched noodles. The act was cracking, finally. "I don't want to lose this house," she murmured. "It's the only place that's ever felt stable." I looked at her for a long moment, and for the first time, the very first time, I saw something real behind her words. Fear, yes, but also a flicker of vulnerability, something raw, unfiltered, and painfully human. So I said something unexpected. "You don't have to lose it." Her head snapped up. "But you do have to earn it." I slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a formal lease agreement. At below market rent, because I'm not cruel, but still fair. And attached to it was a handwritten list of my terms. 1. No more chore lists. 2. You clean your own house. 3. You treat me as family, not staff. 4. You and Jeremy split responsibilities equally. 5. You take financial responsibility and save for your own future. If you want this house, I said, you can rent it like adults. But there's no more pretending I don't exist. No more pretending I owe you anything. Amanda looked stunned. Not angry, not smug, just stunned. She took the envelope with both hands. She didn't say yes, not yet, but she took the papers, and sometimes that's all you need to know. The winds have changed. That night, Jeremy texted me. She told me what happened. "I don't know what you said, but thank you for giving her a chance." I replied, "I didn't give her a chance, sweetheart. I gave her a choice." There's a difference between someone saying they'll change and someone actually changing. And at first, I didn't know which version of Amanda I was going to get. The next morning after our Pad CU summit, she sent me a text. I signed the lease, dropped it in your mailbox. We'll set up direct deposit by the 1st. Thank you again for everything. No emojis, no fake sweetness. Just plain, direct, and respectful. That was new. Over the next few weeks, I kept my distance, not out of spite, but to give her room. People need time to absorb humility. You can't microwave it. Still, I'd hear little things through Jeremy. She asked if I wanted to split the grocery list this week. She cleaned the bathroom without me saying anything. She apologized for the way she handled my mom before. Small things. But if you've ever dealt with someone who always had to be right, then you know those small things mean a lot. And to her credit, Amanda started walking the walk. No more chore lists, no more guilt-trippy sighs when I said I was too busy to babysit. She even brought over dinner one night, completely unprompted. Just knocked on my door with a casserole, said no agenda, and left without trying to have a heart-to-heart. I stood there holding a steaming dish of chicken tetrazzini, suspicious like a raccoon sniffing a trap. But I ate it. Because peace is peace. But not everyone was convinced, especially not my daughter, Lena. She'd just come in from Chicago to visit me for the weekend. Lena's a firecracker, always has been. Says what she means and means it loud. Wait, you gave Amanda a lease? She asked, sitting cross-legged on my couch with her arms crossed. She's paying rent, taking accountability. She used you like a doormat for years, and now she gets to live in your house just because she printed out a contract and wiped her own countertops? She also apologized, genuinely. Lena rolled her eyes. Yeah, after you pulled the rug out from under her. That's not growth, Mom. That's survival instinct. I understood her anger. I did. She saw what Amanda had done. She felt it through me, even from states away. She'd watched me slowly shrink into the background of my own generosity. But here's the thing about grace. It doesn't always make sense to the people watching. It's not performance. It's process. She's changing, I said simply. And what if it's just a phase? Lena pressed. What if she turns on you again the second she's comfortable? Then I'll hand her another notice. Lena stared at me. You've really grown a backbone lately, she said, half proud, half concerned. I smiled. No, honey, I always had one. I just stopped hiding it under banana bread. 2 days later, Amanda came by. Unexpectedly, again. This time, she had a folder in hand. I wanted to show you something, she said. I've been meeting with a financial planner. We're opening a savings account, and I'm mapping out a plan to build enough for a down payment. On our own house. She wasn't bragging. She wasn't angling. She looked relieved, like someone who'd finally started reading the manual for the life they'd been fumbling through. I owe you more than I can probably repay, she said. But I want you to know, I'm not going to waste the second chance you gave us. Now, I'm not the emotional type, but something about that moment, well, it made me realize how rare it is for people to admit they were wrong and then actually do the work to be better. Later that week, Jeremy called me with a quiet voice. She's different, he said. We're communicating again. Really communicating. I didn't realize how far apart we'd drifted until now. I wanted to tell him I was proud of him, but what I said was, you had to see it for yourself. That's how growing up works. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't wrapped in a bow. There were still moments Amanda slipped into old habits. A sarcastic comment here, an eye roll there. But the difference? She caught herself, and that to me mattered more than any chore list apology or catered dinner.